What's going on, YouTube world? Austin Zaback coming to you live with another YouTube video. And in this video, I'm actually going to be live. So if you're watching the replay of this, this is unfiltered, unedited, just unscripted, real, raw, and authentic. And I'm going to show you how to pass your real estate exam on the first try. So definitely stay tuned to the end of this video. Pretty much everything in this video is just going to be that, right? So, and it's all going to be important. Not one thing is going to be more important than the other. So definitely stay tuned till the very end. But with that being said, I do have some notes. I have triple monitors here, so I have some notes on both sides of me that I might refer to that I was just kind of typing out, jogging my brain on how I actually passed, and did exactly what I'm going to teach you guys. So, if you're watching this, the number one thing that I would say is obviously, let's just talk really quick. Let's take just a quick moment to talk about, the schooling, right? So depending on what state you live in, you're going to go to a schooling. Now, whether you do that online or whether you do a physical school, I think should be up to you. It's however you learn best. I personally did a physical school. I'm more hands-on and I learn a lot better. I'm less distracted and that's just what works best for me. If you're better at online, then do online. But the one tip that I have here on this subject, and then we'll move right along, is that you do it as quickly as humanly possible, okay? The one thing that I see happen over and over and over again is that people drag out the process so long that there's just no possible way that by the time you get to like chapter 19 or whatever, I think there's 19 chapters in the state of Arizona, and that might vary state by state, but not by a lot. By the time you get to the very end, there's no way you're ever going to remember in a million years what you learned in the beginning if you drag the process out too far. So try your hardest to put yourself in a class, whether it be physical or online, where you can do it as soon as possible. I know in the state of Arizona, they'll actually let you physically take classes for up to 10 hours a day. And in the state of Arizona, they require 90 hours. So they actually have a 9-day crash course in the state of Arizona that you can do and just get it all done in 9 days, and your schooling is over with. Your hours that you need to take the test is over in 9 days, and then you're able to take the test. So that's my first tip, just before I talk about the actual test itself, is just do it as fast as possible. You want to jam this information in your head as quickly as possible so you can try to retain as much as possible because there is a lot of information. So that's definitely my first tip. My second tip is probably and I'm just going over here to look at my notes really quick, but basically you want to memorize, I think, as much as you possibly can. And I know this is contrary or contradictory to what maybe some other people might tell you, but the reality of it is there's probably only and again, don't quote me on this, but maybe like 10 to 50% of everything that you're going to learn that you'll ever actually need to know or use. But they require it. They require you have to learn the information to go and obviously do it, because they don't know what kind of real estate you're going to do. You might not even know what kind of real estate you're going to do. So they have to teach you about commercial real estate and residential real estate and resale and new builds. And you might only go do one of those things. You might do it all, but you might just do one too. So all that other information that you just learned, which by the way, you need to know to pass the test, will be irrelevant the second you pass the test. So just understand that a lot of it comes down to memorization. You want to memorize as much as humanly possible. So, tip number 2 is memorize, 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 which kind of goes back to tip number 1, because memorization is always easier the quicker that you do it. It's not easy to memorize something and then wait 2 months to take the test. It's way easier to memorize it and then take the test as soon as possible. So speed is, crucial here, right? Tip number 1 was speed, do it as fast as you can. Tip number 2 is memorize as much as you can. Just some normal test taking tips here are get some rest, right? Get some rest, do all that good stuff. I would probably say that you want to take your test no more than 48 or 72 hours after you're done with your studying and your school. So you want to start taking the school. You want to get through it. You want to be studying every single night or morning or whenever you operate best. And then when you're done with the schooling, you maybe want to wait at most a couple of days before you actually go take your test. So definitely just something to keep in mind there. You don't want to drag this process out. Again, take the gosh dang test as soon as possible. Another thing is obviously, as I mentioned before, get good sleep. Figure out, like, be self-aware. If you like, for me personally, I have more energy in the mornings, right? So I'm a morning guy. I just, if I can wake up and drink a cup of coffee and go to Starbucks, get to the test taking facility, a couple hours early. So I'm literally in the facility, turn my phone off or on silent and literally just study. That way, when I walk in there, it's fresh in my head. That's what works for me. But some people are nighttime people, some people are afternoon, people. So figure out what kind of person you are, and then try to take the test whenever you have the most energy, whenever you're, best and most focused, right? So just be self-aware of that, and don't try to force yourself to do something that you're not going to be good at. So that's obviously tip number 4. Moving on, tip number 5 is along the journey, I would do flashcards. Now, whether you make your own flashcards or you buy the flashcards that pretty much every school is going to offer you, whether it be online or an in-person physical school, they're going to offer probably a couple different things. Number 1, they're going to offer, like, typically an online real estate, like, exam prep, like, test that you can purchase for probably under like $50. Okay, I think mine was like $40 or something like that. That helped me a ton. The reason why that helped me a ton was because I would say 90% of the questions that were on this, this test exam online were real legitimate questions that actually ended up being on my actual exam. So when I was taking these online tests, it actually helped. It went back to the memorization thing. I was able to literally memorize questions and answers. And when I walked into the test, it was like, oh, I've seen this 10 times and I knew the right answer right off the bat. So, and same with flashcards, right? So, whether you make your own flashcards along the way and you're constantly studying these flashcards, or you buy the school's version of flashcards, I highly suggest that you do that because, again, you just want to, for the amount of time that you're in the zone, trying to go through the school and the test, you just want to be full blown. Like, you want to eat, sleep, and breathe this test, okay? Because it's not an easy test, and there's a reason it's not an easy test, because, there's a lot of laws and weird stuff, and you just need some of the stuff you need to know, some you don't, but the reality of it is, you got to pass the test, and they want to make it as hard as possible. So, again, if you can study the online, you can study the flashcards, you're going to have a much higher chance of passing the test, okay? So that's definitely tip number 5. Study. Get a study buddy if you can. Study the flashcards, study the online test, like whatever resources you can possibly do to study, you definitely want to take advantage of that. So that's definitely tip number 5. Tip number 6 probably is just confidence, right? When I walked in to take the test, I had massive confidence that I was going to pass. Again, if you have massive confidence and you end up failing, or have no confidence and end up failing, I mean, you may as well have massive confidence, right? So, go in there like you own the freaking place, I mean, listen to some Tony Robbins when you wake up, or be right before you're going to go take the test, and, listen to some positive stuff, study your brains out, and, just go in there with massive confidence that you're going to pass, right? So that's definitely tip number 6. Tip number 7 would be that you go in there and you brain dump everything right the second you walk into the classroom. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is this. So I suggest you actually get to the facility where you're going to take the test a couple hours in advance, okay? Because you study now for a couple of days or even a week or however long. Now you get to the facility, and I would go through everything you've been studying, everything, while at the facility, okay? So literally right before you're about to take the test. Memorize all of the weird stuff, right? All the formulas, all of the, how many feet are in a mile, how long is a rod, like all the crazy weird stuff that you need to know. Memorize that and study that and jam that all into right before you're about ready to take the test, and then walk right in there. They're going to give you a couple of sheets of paper, okay? And then they'll give you a pen. So you want to walk right in there, and you want to literally take the first 10 or 15 minutes and just brain dump everything that you've been memorizing and accumulating in your head, and just jot it down on the piece of paper. All the formulas, anything that you think is pertinent that you think you're going to find on that test, write it all down, so that way you can clear your mind of that, and you're not having to try to memorize that for the next couple of hours or hold on to that while you're trying to focus on other questions. So brain fart it, get it all down, or brain dump it, get it all down, and you're gonna, be able to then clear up a bunch of mental space for you to, answer some of the other questions that you might not have memorized, but you can actually like think through that and internalize it and process it. While when you get to the other questions, you'll actually have legitimate stuff written down right in front of you that you can literally just basically copy and paste. I mean, it's so simple, right? So brain dump as soon as you get into the classroom and study at the facility a couple of hours in advance. I promise you, you will be glad that you did. Other than that, guys, take a break and take your time. They give you a couple hours depending on what state you're in. Don't rush it. Take all the time. Even if you get done in an hour, go back through and just reread things. I know that people will say go with your gut instinct, and I definitely agree with that. But just go back through and just make sure that everything sounds really good. Make sure that you feel good about it. Take the full amount of time. Take a break if you need to. Go to the bathroom. Be hydrated. Drink some. Bring a coffee in there. Go to Starbucks that morning. Get a good night's rest. Jam it into as short. Make the whole process as short as you possibly can. I know if you have a job or something, sometimes that can be hard, but just try your best to make that happen. Take everything, what I've told you, I promise you it will work if you just apply the simple things that I'm telling you in this live video, or again, if you're watching it on replay, that as well. But you will pass your test. The only other thing that I can really say is a lot of the questions in the state of Arizona, at least, there was normally 2 questions that you could pretty much eliminate right away that just don't make much sense. And then there's one right question, and then there's one that could be right, but it's not. They're really tricky. They try to trick you. Don't be fooled. Think long and hard about it and figure out which one makes the most sense, okay? What answer makes the most sense? Because one of them will seem like it makes the most sense, but if you just sit there for an extra 10 or 15 seconds or 20 seconds or however long you need, you'll realize that one actually does make more sense than the other. And then my final tip is this, and I actually just thought of this, a good thing I'm doing a live video, is that when you're doing like the math problems and stuff, a lot of them you can work backwards. So, figure out how to work the problem backwards to get the answer, right? So then you'll be able to do basically process of elimination and figure out what the right answer is that way by working it backwards. Okay, that's another big tip that I have for you for the math equations, because sometimes the math is really weird and you're looking at it and you're all stressed out and you're like, what the heck? I promise you, just work it backwards and then work it forwards, and you're going to have a calculator, right? And they're going to let you use a calculator and it'll all make sense, and there'll only be one right answer for the math formulas if you just work it backwards and take your time. So if you do everything that I've told you to do, you will pass, I promise. And if you don't, then it's because you didn't do something I told you to do. Guys, I hope you got something out of this video. My name is Austin Zaback. Down below, I obviously have Real Estate Mastery, where I mastered everything real estate, all things real estate by 21 years old. Sold tens of millions of dollars worth of traditional real estate and flipped, hundreds and hundreds of houses with no money down and no money out of my own pocket. And I combined the two. I mastered all things real estate. And, I don't say that to toot my own horn. I say that because I've been fortunate and blessed to, have had the opportunities that I've had, and I've wanted nothing more than to package it all up, everything I've ever learned, and put it into something that could help you. So if you're watching this, first link in the description is Real Estate Mastery. Definitely grab a copy of that. It's still 50% off. Other than that, hope you enjoyed this live video. If you're watching it on replay, hopefully, you enjoyed that as well. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Definitely drop in the comment section freaking below what you'd like to see on future videos. If you guys go watch some of my other videos, I want to bring you like more lifestyle, videographer kind of stuff, a day in the life, open up the curtains to my life, show you I am a serial entrepreneur. I do a lot of things besides real estate. So let me know what you'd like to see, and smash that thumbs up, and we'll see you guys in the next video.